Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome back Janet Jokela, infectious disease physician and former treasurer of the American College of Physicians. Today's Kevin MD article is Internal Medicine 2025, Inspiration at the Annual Meeting. Janet, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks so much. Delighted to be here.
All right, so tell us what your latest article is about.
Well, I wrote this after returning from the annual meeting, and I just realized how important it's been to me throughout my career and how much I enjoyed it. And I thought, well, let's write about that. And I realized that with the annual meeting, I could kind of lump things into three different categories like education, inspiration, and then also the community, because the meeting really represents all of those things for me. And I just loved it. So you kind of come back with kind of newfound energy and being inspired and all that. And it was just a really wonderful experience.
So tell me how the American College of Physicians, their annual meeting, how has that evolved over the years? Because obviously you were the former treasurer, so I'm going to assume that you've been involved with the American College of Physicians for many, many years now. In 2025, tell us how that meeting has changed over the years.
Right, right. That's a great question. My first meeting was sometime back in the 90s. Okay, so I know that dates me, but so be it. At that time, going to the meeting, I was so inspired at that time, even. There were so many just over the top, fabulous educational offerings. I felt like I was at a sumptuous smorgasbord, for lack of a better phrase. There's so many things I wanted to attend, so many things that I knew that would be helpful for me with my patients and help me take better care of my patients. I was just running from one thing to the next. Now it's similar in that way, of course. The educational offerings are over the top, the best that you can find anywhere. The ACP recruits top faculty across the country to come and talk about all these different topics. And in addition, the ACP has really evolved to also take care of the rising generation of internal medicine doctors. So whether it's medical students, residents, or early career physicians, there are activities and sessions specifically devoted to them. And there's a lot of focus on that and also new technologies, videos, all kinds of stuff. It's really a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Physicians today, they're busier than ever, and some organizations, they've cut back on things like CME budget, and sometimes physicians have to attend these meetings in person on their own time. So again, like the practice setting today is much different than it was like 10, 15 years ago, where physicians are so squeezed for time. So talk to us about, and you mentioned this earlier, of course, about the value proposition of the meeting. Why should they take sometimes time and maybe even on their own dime in terms of going to this meeting?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's really good points that you're making, Kevin, just about people's time pressures and also financial pressures to get away and do all of this. I tell you, for me, every time that I go, when I come back, I feel energized and even more ready to dive into everything else that's been, going on here say, in my day job. So with that, I think that's one reason. It's energizing to attend the meeting. The second is that the ACP certainly is aware of this, that it's hard for people to get away and attend the meeting in person. There is an online option. Okay. So there are folks I know who attend the meeting in person and they may be exercising in the gym early in the morning, but they're watching a live stream of a session from the ellipsoid, from the gym. And it's a way that ACP has tried to accommodate, but also kind of acknowledging the realities that it's hard for people to get away and do these things in the way that we've been traditionally used to doing them for all these years. So I think the value proposition certainly is education, the inspiration, the energizing inspiration, but then also the community. There's something just intangible and invaluable about connecting with people in person that you just can't get other ways.
You anticipated my next question in terms of the value of an in-person meeting, right? Because everything now is virtual, increasing virtual options, everything on demand, right? We could just pull up these lectures on demand. So tell
Yep.
us about the inspiration you get from an in-person meeting, about some of the physicians that you may not see, for several years, and having all the ACP officers together. So talk to us about that value, about meeting these physicians and your colleagues in person.
Right. It's really a wonderful experience, as I think we can all appreciate on some level. And there's just something different about being in person and being able to connect with people, give them a hug, or whatever it may be, the body language, the all the sound, the interactions, everybody around you. There's something special about that it's hard to capture virtually. But I mean, that said, there's a lot of wonderful things, of course, that can happen virtually. And again, as I mentioned before, ACP has worked hard to incorporate all the virtual options as best they can. I tell you though, to be able to connect with people in person who may not be on a scheduled Zoom call or whatever it is, there's just something magical about it that is just irreplaceable. It's hard to articulate, but I hope that gets at what you're aiming towards.
So beyond the educational offerings, what else happens behind the scenes during these meetings?
Oh, a ton happens behind the scenes. The officers of the college are incredibly busy going to multiple different sessions, also multiple different meetings. We have a global forum where we welcome international representatives of internal medicine societies from across the world. We participate in that. There's all kinds of things that happen. Some committee meetings, some groups actually meet there at the annual meeting, so that happens as well. So there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of wonderful things happening in the Clinical Skills Center, for example. So there's just a tremendous amount of activity, energy, and there's more things to do than you can imagine. And you kind of think, oh my goodness, there's 5 places I want to be right now, but I can only be at one. So how do you do this? So you kind of have to juggle your time and kind of plan things accordingly and hope for the best that it will all work out.
So I have to be honest, it's been many, many years since I last attended an ACP meeting. Now, for those physicians who maybe haven't attended in a while, or maybe new physicians or even residents who want to attend the ACP meeting, what are some tips that you could share with them to really get the most out of this meeting? Because if you just look at a program, it is just daunting to look at. There's just so much going on, like you said. So share some tips in terms of how they can get the most out of this meeting.
Right. That's an important question. And my recollection is there's even a session on that. Like if this is your first meeting or if you haven't been to the meeting for a while, attend this session early on and they will go over exactly that, like how to sort of plan your schedule. So for instance, if someone is a hospitalist, there's a hospitalist thread, if you will, to describe it that way. But there are sessions directly targeting hospitalists or directly targeting people who work in the outpatient setting in the clinic and also threads for early career physicians. So there are ways that you can plan your schedule, targeting your activities to specifically what you're doing in your day job, and to try to focus it in that way. So that's one way. And otherwise, there's a whole bunch of fun things, just fun things as well. So it's just all good.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of fun things are available outside of education and behind the scenes? What are some fun things?
Well, for instance, the chapters have activities there too. So, for instance, with your chapter in New Hampshire, I'm sure there was a chapter reception. So,
Mhm.
this is where folks from New Hampshire would get together and you see each other and you commiserate in person, and it would be an evening reception, and you see each other, commiserate, and all of that. And every chapter does that. And we can visit other chapters' receptions, which many of us as officers do. We'll do that and we'll visit the international chapters receptions as well. We are going to the Japan chapter reception, the Brazil chapter reception, a number of these. So that's one small thing, but it's again really nice to connect people and to connect with people in our location wherever we are for the day job, and we can do that. Convocation is another really kind of meaningful and wonderful event. So that takes place on Thursday evening, the first night of the meeting, Thursday evening, and that's a wonderful, affirming, inspiring event. So there's that too. There's so much more. It's so broad. I urge everybody to try to make it.
Now let's go back to some of the educational offerings, which of course is the core of this meeting. So give us some inside knowledge in terms of how the program is constructed, how are the topics put on the program, how do you recruit faculty to speak at this meeting? What's some inside knowledge that you could share with us in terms of how the program is constructed and who speaks at these meetings?
Sure. You can imagine it requires an army of people to plan a meeting like this. So, in essence, this meeting, the planning for that started 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and there's a committee that looks at this, reviews the potential schedule, the potential topic areas, and then the committee starts to brainstorm about who would be good people to invite for these various talks. So, and given all the many, many talks, you can imagine how much time and effort this may take to to put it all together. So it does take a couple of years to do. There's also opportunities for the councils, the Medical Student Council, the Resident and Fellows Council, as well as the Early Career Physicians Council to focus on some specific programming for them. And that's kind of how it works. But it's very carefully vetted and reviewed, and it's a lot of work, but clearly it pays off.
Now, I know, of course, you're biased with your affiliation with the ACP, but just in general, as a physician, tell us about the relevance of professional society annual meetings, just in general, going forward and in the coming years. Do you see continuing relevance in these professional society annual meetings for physicians?
Yeah, good question, Kevin. And you're absolutely right. I'm biased. I'm biased based on my experience with the ACP. I tell you, in many ways, I feel like the ACP has helped keep me sane, okay, over the years, and that I know that the educational content that I'm receiving from the ACP is a standard of care and it's cutting edge, and this is where we need to be in terms of delivering care to our patients. So I think in addition to feeling inspired, I also have felt confident coming away from the ACP meeting, knowing that I received the most accurate, up-to-date information on how to best take care of my patients. So in terms of professional society meetings, absolutely. I'm biased. My experience has been so positive with the ACP and the ACP meeting. I just cannot imagine, well, looking back, I can't imagine my career without the ACP. And looking ahead, I mean, it's similar. Like, how could we not embrace our professional societies and everything that they're doing for us in our practice?
So again, looking forward, do you see any trends in terms of the continuing evolution of these annual meetings? Do you feel like they're going to change at all going forward? What kind of trends and evolution do you see with these professional society annual meetings going forward?
That's a wonderful question too. I tell you, I know personally at the ACP, the people who are kind of behind the brains behind the annual meeting, they're very creative and very out of the box thinkers. And I'm sure there's going to be changes and other things to the meeting. But again, just trying to make it as appealing and as useful to practicing physicians as possible, including the people in the pipeline, the early career residents and fellows and the students. So that said, looking back just for a moment, to incorporate the streaming capability, I
Mhm.
think has been a huge advance. And that's been a very deliberate and respectful addition, knowing that people are pressed for time, they're busy and all this. But if that enables people attending the meeting to get their workout in, for instance, let's do it. And they've done that. There will be more, who knows, tweaks and changes going forward. Exactly what they'll be, it's hard to say. But I tell you, there were I'm not sure of the actual numbers, but I think there were over 7,000 people there at this meeting, which is a huge group. It's a great big group. And you realize when everybody is there for the same reason, wanting to get the best education, to do the best for their patients, that's really inspiring.
So one of the things in these annual meetings, of course, is networking, right? And not everyone has intrinsic skill to network, right? Especially if you're going there and you don't know anybody and
Yeah,
kind of reaching out to people that you may not be familiar with. So share
yeah.
some networking tips for people who may not be as experienced with networking.
Sure, sure, sure. Networking is kind of a funny concept. I think it's important. It's incredibly important, especially for people in various circles, whether it's for their research or other, who knows what, other reasons as well. But that said, I think a basic component of networking is to take an interest in others and to be curious. If you see someone kind of standing by themselves or looking at something that you're interested in, to to walk over to that person and just start up a conversation and to be curious about, well, why are you here? What are you looking at? What are you finding interesting about XYZ? That's a really wonderful way to start. So we take an interest in others and we take an interest in them. And that can open up all kinds of doors. So that would be probably my first and primary suggestion for networking.
We're talking to Janet Jokela. She is the infectious disease physician and former treasurer of the American College of Physicians. Today's Kevin MD article is Internal Medicine 2025 Inspiration at the Annual Meeting. Janet, let's end with some take home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
Sure. Thank you, Kevin. Again, I think if everybody could incorporate, and I know this isn't possible, but we'll put it out there anyway. If all internal medicine physicians could incorporate the annual meeting into their annual CME events, I think they won't regret it. It's such a valuable experience, an inspiring experience, energizing experience, and I think people would get so much out of it that it would just be good all around. So I just urge people to incorporate it into one's annual CME activities.
Janet, thank you again for sharing your perspective and insight. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much.